Coming up next, the Doug Garrison Show. Tonight, Doug's guests include mining journal publisher Jim Reevs, from the Downtown Development Authority, Mona Lang, and new NMU basketball coach Doug Lewis, and a special appearance by the new Attitude Stand Studio Dancers. The Doug Garrison Show starts now.
Tell the host 2 minutes. Stand by live to tape. Lighting to show level, please. Confirm front of house sound PFL. Roll tape on masters, channel to places. Alright, let's clear the set. Cue John music, open stage mics. Standby effects, standby CG. Standby to open on 3, 2. Alright, folks, let's have a good show. Stand by, roll it in.
Good. All right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming to the Doug Garrison Show. We are coming to you from beautiful Upfront and Company in downtown Marquette. And this is the time of year when I go on my usual rant. I've said it before, and people who know me know I'd like to talk about this a lot, but it's time to think about shopping local. As we get into the Christmas holiday shopping season, it's a good thing to remind everybody that when you can shop local, it helps all of the businesses and all of the institutions in your local community. You know, I know we like to shop online. We like to go through catalogs. We like to go down to Green Bay or Appleton or Lower Michigan. But this year, let's think twice about it, because that doesn't do us any good in beautiful Marquette and surrounding communities, Negaunee, Ishpeming, Gwinn. We need people to think about patronizing their local businesses, because these local businesses, in turn, help support the things that are important to us, like our schools and our other events and activities. So think about it. If you're looking for a certain item, if you're looking online or in a catalog, think, can I purchase this item locally? And if you can get the same thing at a comparable price for a comparable quality, please buy it locally. That helps everybody. So before you go shopping out of town, remember those 2 simple words: shop local. Thank you very much. Now, we've got a great show for you tonight. We've got Mona Lang from the Downtown Development Authority. We've got Jim Reevs, publisher of the Mining Journal. And we've got the new coach of the NMU basketball Wildcats, Doug Lewis. He's going to be with us, too. So stick around. We'll be right back.
The Marquette Community Federal Credit Union has a great deal just for you.
No way.
You can get a loan for 6.9% APR up to $5,000 for a maximum of 36 months.
That's outstanding.
No, it's true. That's 6.9% APR up to $5,000.
Really?
Plus, there's more.
Come on.
Non-members stop in and ask about additional savings.
Yikes.
Great value and savings at the Marquette Community Federal Credit Union.
Looking for Divine Consign and Donated Furniture? They've moved behind Lowry's Pasties on Bancroft off US 41 in Marquette. And remember, all proceeds go to Marquette Catholic Schools. Divine Consign, good furniture, good cause.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. With us tonight, our first guest is the publisher of the Mining Journal, Jim Reevs. Jim, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Doug.
Good to have you. I wanted to talk to you about your industry, which is going through a lot of changes these days. Sometimes we think that the small dailies are endangered species, but you seem to be thriving in this tough time.
Well, I think the key word there is small dailies, because smaller rural communities rely more on their daily newspaper. When you see that the Rocky Mountain News closed last year in a metro market, that's a whole different market than Marquette is. You know, we still serve the people. The people here aren't apathetic about their community. They're very involved in their community. So the small dailies are doing fine. I'm not going to say it was a great year this year, and last year was off a little bit. You know, business is off a little bit, and with the internet, your subscriber base is off a little bit. But still, rural daily newspapers are still hanging very strong.
Well, you guys, and I'm not trying to patronize you. You guys are such a valuable commodity in this community, because it's how we know what's going on. I mean, I look at the paper to find out what types of things I want to have on this show, frankly. So yeah. It's a real gauge of what's happening. But you mentioned the internet. How are you dealing with that as far as presenting your material?
Well, it's a challenge every day, and nobody's really developed a business model that's going to work for all newspapers right now. We have about 100,000 unique visitors that come to us on the internet every month. And by unique visitors, I mean that's 100,000 different computers that come there. Circulation's down a little bit in newspapers, and you look at that, but I never thought that I have that kind of an audience that I picked up 100,000. So, A lot of businesses are saying they're struggling right now. In that context, we've gained 100,000 new customers through the internet.
Yeah. But you referred to the business model. How do you make money off those internet viewers?
Well, you have to sell advertising, and a few people get mad at us once in a while when there's a talking ad on there, but you have to sell advertising,
Sure.
and that's a big part of it. So that helps support it. The other thing that really makes it unique for the newspapers is we used to be on a 24-hour news cycle, and now we're not. We go to press at 10:45 a.m. in the morning on Monday through Friday. If a news story breaks at 11:15 a.m., we can have it up at 11:30 a.m. That's a whole different world with the internet that we weren't involved with before.
Well, good. Well, it's a challenge, and I do think you guys are dealing with it quite well. I'm impressed with the changes you've made in the paper in the last couple of years. It looks good, and so, like I say, I'm not trying to patronize you. I like what you're doing, so keep it up.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions, though. I see when you have an editorial in the paper, it's just underneath your list of your people who are on your editorial staff, but I'm never quite sure who wrote that editorial. I'd like to know who wrote it.
I don't know sometimes. I'm just kidding. It can be a variety of people. Sometimes we sit down and we talk about it together. One of the editors will actually write the editorial. I write some editorials myself. Some of our reporters may write an editorial. If it's an issue that they're strongly involved with, we'll let them write it too. So there isn't one flat answer to that. There isn't one person that writes all the editorials.
Okay. So it's representative of the editorial staff. Do you ever run editorials that come from a national service, or are they all local editorials?
Yeah, part of our ownership has national editorials that they put out there that we're able to use if we want to use them as well.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll take a national editorial and we'll localize that by putting some local information into it as well.
Okay, I've noticed that. Another thing, probably a very popular part of the paper that's well read, is the letters. Do you print all the letters you get, or do you select some and leave out some?
No, pretty much if you meet the criteria, which is the word count that we have, as long as there's no libelous statements in there, as long as we don't have to go through and do a lot of research to identify factual information in the editorial letters, the editor will run them. But the basis, the difference with us, again, is you have to identify yourself.
Okay, well, good. You got to put a name on it.
You have to put a name on it. Otherwise, you're not allowed to go onto the editorial
Well, that makes
page.
sense. Another thing that I think you have to walk this line of being a cheerleader for the community, but also doing objective reporting. And how do you deal with that? Because I know I'll cite the example of Sawyer. It seems like over the years we've seen many stories about people coming into Sawyer and bringing in 200 jobs or 600 jobs, and sometimes I don't see that materialized, yet it's publicized as though this is a great thing that's happening. I'm more into the paycheck than the promise, but how do you deal with that issue?
Well, that's a good question to ask me, too, as publisher, because I can wear a couple of different hats. We're playing that advocacy role and watchdog role constantly. And I have to walk that line, because if we don't have a healthy community, our newspaper doesn't survive.
Right.
So we have to have a healthy community. But we have to do that watchdog role. Somebody's got to watch out how tax dollars are spent. Somebody's got to keep an eye on things going on in this community. And sometimes that makes us not so popular with certain people in the community. But that's part of our job that we have to do. Sure. When there's a bad car accident or something, and it's something that we've got to cover, people look at us as ambulance chasers and this and that. We don't view it that way. We view it as that's our obligation to tell people if they were backed up in traffic for 2 miles, what happened. That's our job to tell them. We don't relish in the fact that somebody got hurt or somebody was in an accident. Sure. We look at that as that's our obligation to our community to be able to report that kind of information.
Well, kind of a follow-up question. Sometimes I see stories, and it's not just in the newspaper, it's in electronic media too, where there's a story about something happened, but the name of the person is not identified because the police have not released that name or something yet. Yet I think the reporters know who it is, but the name hasn't been released. I want to know who. That's the first one of who. What it's who. If it's not, if I don't know who, I don't care. So why do you wait to release that name until you've been given it from the authorities? Why don't you just tell us?
Well, there are a variety of reasons. I mean, typically people in the neighborhood, if somebody dies or there's a murder or something like that, they know what happened. It's the family. It's contacting the family. That's our obligation, too, to not put that information out. How would you feel as a family member to read on the internet or read in the newspaper that a family member died before you were contacted on that? When it comes down to legal action, arraignments have to come into play because the arraignment is an actual legal activity that takes place. So we're trying to be careful not to put information out. Once you put it in print, it's hard to get it back again.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. So,
right.
I mean, you want to be as accurate as you can with that. And that's another thing that we don't go with. Some electronic media put that information out there without having the verified information. I mean, when the young children were killed down in Iron Mountain, the teenage children.
Right.
There was stuff on the internet, stuff flying
erroneous
back and
reports.
forth, supposedly who it was and this and that. What if somebody's name went on there and they weren't really involved with it?
Right.
How do you get that back? How do you get that damage back? So we're a little more cautious with that. That's part of ethical journalism.
Sure. Again, walking that fine line. Last thing here, there was an article in this week's paper. A couple friends of mine, John Major and Frida Wara, going to the South Pole. It's kind of an interesting story, and I'm sure you're going to follow it as it goes along. But John made the comment, many people I talked with wish they were going. He didn't talk to me. I don't want to be buried at the South Pole, much less go there on a sunny day. But they're talking about the goal of this is they're going to do a comparison between living conditions on the South Pole and living conditions in Detroit. I don't think they have to go. I can tell them, one is a barren, cold, desolate landscape with food and survival as your main concerns. The other is the South Pole. Why do they have to go? I don't think they need to.
They have to go so that Frida can truly become a bipolar skier. Frida Wara will then have skied on both the North Pole and the South Pole, so she would truly be a bipolar skier. If for no other reason, they have to go for that reason.
Well, I'm sure Frida will enjoy that. She's definitely a snowbird. She's going to enjoy that. Jim, thanks a lot for joining us today. We've learned a little bit about the Mining Journal. Good luck in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
It's big, scary. They're gone. Come on, we got it. Relax. You're all right. Wolf 2.